Welcome to LitSummary, where we bring you the best of literature in a quick and concise format. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss another episode of LitSummary. Today, we're diving into the treasure in the forest. Our story begins as the two men, Evans and Hooker, approach land in their canoe. They are in search of a treasure marked on a map, and as they near the coast, they realize they are close to the spot indicated on the map, which is worn and creased from being folded and handled so often, shows the outline of the bay and a river running through the forest. The men mark the spot on the map as they enter the lagoon, but they are puzzled by the small marks and Chinese writing on the map. Evans is described as having hard and dry lips and being in a state of exhaustion, suggesting that he is physically and emotionally drained from the journey to the island and the search for the treasure. Hooker is described as exhausted and having languid movements, suggesting that he is also physically drained from the journey. As they drift closer to the shore, the men become more and more exhausted from the long journey and the intense excitement of the search for the treasure. Despite being so close to the treasure, Evans finds it hard to feel the exultation he had anticipated, as his thoughts are consumed by his thirst and the desire for fresh water. The sun is high in the sky, and the heat is intense, adding to the men's discomfort. The rhythmic wash of the sea on the reef becomes audible, and the sound is soothing to Evans as he begins to doze off. The two men have come a long way in search of this treasure, and they are finally close to their destination. However, their journey has taken a toll on them, and they are physically and emotionally drained. As they approach the spot marked on the map, they can only hope that the treasure is worth the effort they have put in to find it. Evans falls into a dreamlike state as they approach the lagoon. He relives the night when he and Hooker discovered the Chinamen's secret of the buried treasure, and remembers the cunning face of Chang-hi, who had stumbled upon the treasure and wanted help to exhume it. However, the dream becomes unpleasant as Chang-hi turns into a devil, shouting and threatening Evans. Chang-hi is a minor character in The Treasure in the Forest, but he plays a significant role in the story. He is described as a Chinese man who stumbled upon a treasure on the island and then reburied it with great effort to keep it safe. He then sought help from Evans and Hooker to exhume the treasure, offering them a share in return for their assistance. Evans wakes up as they enter the lagoon, and Hooker points out the 3 palm trees on the map. They paddle up the river and begin to drink eagerly, relieved finally to have fresh water. However, Evans grows impatient and stops to drink directly from the river, sucking up the water with his lips. They then land and begin to make their way through the thick bushes to the beach, where they will find the clump of bushes and use it as a reference point to locate the treasure. Evans and Hooker set out on a journey to find a valuable treasure hidden in the jungle. They begin by paddling their canoe down the river, the water rippling gently as they glide along. As they reach the shore, they disembark and set out on foot. Navigating through the dense jungle, the air is heavy with humidity and the ground is moist beneath their feet as they push through tangles of reeds, broad fronds, and young trees. The sunlight filters through the leaves overhead, casting dappled shadows on the ground as they walk. As they continue on their journey, the trees around them grow taller and the ground beneath them opens up, the bright rays of the sun giving way to cool, shadowy cover. The men are surrounded by the sights and sounds of the jungle, the rustle of leaves and the calls of exotic birds filling the air. They eventually come across a gap in the trees where bright sunlight shines through, and they hear the rush of water. Hooker recognizes that they have found the river and suggests that they search up and down it for the treasure. As they follow the river, they come across a shocking sight. The body of a dead Chinese man lying in a clearing. There is a spade and a heap of stones near a freshly dug hole, leading Hooker to believe that someone else has already found the treasure. Despite this, the two men remain determined and continue their search. They walk along the riverbank, looking carefully around them as they go. Suddenly, they spot a heap of stones that matches the description given to them by the person who told them about the treasure. Excited by their discovery, they begin to dig and eventually uncover a stash of valuable ingots. Overjoyed at their success, they carefully load the ingots into the canoe, using a coat to protect them. The weight of the treasure causes the boat to sit lower in the water, but the men are too elated to care. They push off from the shore and begin to paddle back down the river, ready to return home and reap the rewards of their treasure hunt. As they glide through the water, they can't help but feel a sense of accomplishment and pride at their hard-won prize. Evans and Hooker struggle to carry the ingots out of the forest, but Evans' arms ache from paddling and he is unable to continue. They set down the ingots and Evans becomes angry and accusatory towards Hooker, who is staring at him strangely. Suddenly, Evans clutches at his throat and collapses against a tree, unable to speak. Hooker approaches him, but Evans tells him not to touch him and to put the gold back on the coat. Hooker notices a slender thorn stuck in the ball of his thumb and realizes that the thorns are similar to those used by the Dayaks in their poison-tipped blow dots. He understands that Chang-hi's assurance of the safety of his treasure was actually a warning, and he also understands the meaning of Chang-hi's strange grin. Evans is motionless and silent, and Hooker begins to feel a strange pain in his own arms and shoulders. He realizes that he too has been poisoned, and he falls to the ground beside Evans. The two men struggle against the effects of the poison and the realization that their treasure hunt has turned into a deadly trap. Up next, a quick character analysis. Evans is also described as having a quick temper, a scene when he becomes angry and accusatory towards Hooker when they are struggling to carry the ingots. Despite this, he seems to care about Hooker and is concerned when he collapses, telling him not to touch him and to put the gold back on the coat. Hooker is also described as being puzzled and staring at Evans strangely, proposing that he may have suspicions or doubts about the mission. Despite this, he seems to care about Evans and is concerned when he collapses, offering to help him and trying to come up with a plan to get help. Overall, both characters seem to be driven by greed and a desire for the treasure, but they also seem to have a sense of loyalty towards each other. However, their obsession with the treasure ultimately leads to their downfall as they succumb to the dangers of the island and the curse that seems to haunt the forest. Chang-hi is portrayed as cunning and manipulative as he uses his knowledge of the treasure to try and persuade Evans and Hooker to help him. He also seems to have a sense of greed as he is willing to share the treasure with them but still wants to keep the majority for himself. However, Chang-hi's greed ultimately leads to his downfall as he is killed by Evans and Hooker when they try to force him to reveal the location of the treasure. His death serves as a warning to Evans and Hooker about the dangers of greed and the consequences of their actions. Thank you for listening to this episode of LitSummary. Make sure to like and subscribe.